All right, we got to finish our second half of files. So we got through all the basics of files. We're going to open files, read or write them, and then close them. We looked at opening files, usually blows away the current contents. So if you want to be adding to the end, you have to add it in append mode. Again, for our purposes right now, the easy thing to do with small files is open it, read it all in, and when you want to change it, just write the whole thing, right? Because we don't know what's changing in the middle, what happens where. Then we wanted to look at a couple other ways of using files. We don't have this from the book from Dr. Chuck, so we're going to look at CSVs and then Json format, which is super popular. We'll get more into using JSON in a couple later chapters, but I want to show you how quick it is to just dump it to a file, which is really fun. Let me fire up PyCharm here. And then let's go get a fun CSV. We don't need that one. This was week 3 files. All right, so this was our little gradebook we were storing. I'm going to add another Python file here to our project. We'll call this one, I don't know, other files. All right, so to use CSV file, I don't need that one open. We have to import the CSV library. So we're just going to import CSV. It's built into Python, which is nice. You don't need to go download anything here. So it's just saying, hey, I want to go add this library here, right? Like an include. So then we can go and open and read CSV files directly. That's the comma separated value. It's a pretty common one. So we can just look up CSV file, I don't know, historic stock market terms. There's probably one out here. Let's see if we can find one. Sure. That's very exciting. Oh, that's the Excel file. Okay. We'll download this one. Let's go. Save. I don't want to save it to my OneDrive. Come on. Download a copy. There we go. So Excel's great. I don't know if you've done much with Excel. We don't care about too much of this, but like, hey, look. Here's a nice little table here. In Excel format, you can do lots of extra other fun things. A CSV format is just text, right? So all we really want here is just this page, this worksheet here as a CSV. So I'm going to go save this one. Saving, yep. Thank you. Goodness. So save as, and we want to change the type here to comma separated values here. So this will be like S&P or something, I don't know, or stocks. And I'm going to go put it in the same folder as the rest of my stuff, right? You can use full file path, be like, hey, it's in C:temp, whatever. Sure, that's a lot of work, and then it's not portable, because if you want to go run the code, you don't have it in your C users, Eric C documents folder, right? Because you have your own users folder. So relative paths are usually pretty nice here as we go. So I'm going to go find it in, I've got 2 different documents. Yeah, that one document is my GitHub. Let me find 298. There we go. This was week 3 files. So I'll save it in here as my stocks.csv. Should be accessible. And we want to save only the active sheet, which is fine. Just this sheet here is the only one we care about. So we'll save that one as a CSV file. And that should have done that for us here. Let's see if we can go find it now. Yep, stocks.csv. Cool. So we got the file. We can see it in our project view because we added it to this folder, right? So PyCharm's like, hey, there's a file out here. And if we go look at it, we see, hey, there's some stuff. Now, this first line is actually not great here. We don't want this first line because it's just garbage, right? What we really want is, this one is all my headers, right? So here's the name of the column, comma, name of a column, comma, name of a column, comma, name of a column, on and on and on and on and on. So we can see all of those here. We'll go ahead and save that. So I just took off the top line. That way I have my headers here. Right? And then if we want to go read this, then we're going to go, I just have to Google it. Python open CSV. I forget what it is all the time. I don't need AI code. Come on, just give me this. So we use CSV reader here to say, hey, I want to go and read this. So we still open the file like we usually do. We give it a name, but then we give that file to the CSV reader, and it does all of the parsing and finds commas and breaks things apart and separates them really nicely for us. We don't have to do any of that extra work here. So again, this uses that with syntax So we don't have to remember to close it. You can just open it, read and write, and then close. Or if you forget that a lot to close, you can use with, and as soon as that block of code is done, it automatically closes for you here. So we can just go open it. So we'll say with open stocks.csv as stocks CSV? Sure, why not? Okay, so we've got it here. Is it not like? Doesn't like, thinks there's a typo. Probably is there, that's fine. Then we want our individual bit here. So this is our stock reader then. Stock reader equals csv.reader given this file. So the CSV reader says, hey, give me the file that you want to go read, and it manages all that parsing for us here. So we'll give it the CSV, or the stocks CSV. Then we can go through and get information out, right, and figure out what we want to do with all of these things here. So again, this gives us the individual rows back out, right? So we can get each row as we go. So we can say, I don't know, for row in stock reader, let's print the row to start. Let's see what we get printing the row. Oops, sorry. When I hit run, it was running the gradebook file here. If I run a different Python file, right, I can just right click and say run. And we see I get a list of values, right? And each one of those values has been separated by commas. So we can see here's the different contents here then for each of these, which is nice. So if we wanted to get, say, what is this? The value? Dividend yield? I don't actually know what's in this file here. Let's see, it's going, yeah. Looks like probably just the whole value of it here. Was not great during the Depression. Go figure. This is like all the way back to the 30s. Goodness. But then starts going up and up and up and up. So just a fun fact about the market too, and like the rate of return on things. When you look at like graphs of value for the market, it looks like it spikes up really quick. But if you have like a constant 10% rate of return and it grows by 10% and grows by 10%, grows by 10%, 10% growth on almost 5,000 is a whole lot more than 10% growth on 92, right? So when you look at these trends and people put out graphs, they're like, hey, look, the stock market's doing better than it's ever done before. Well, yeah, because the 10% gain is, much more than it used to be. So that's all with things like that. So from here with just a list, right, we've done basic lists, right, by index, like your arrays or vectors. So we'll get more into lists later, but I can get individual values back out and I can do something with it here. So we've got all of that data, right? So if I want to go look up, hey, what was the value of it or what's the difference in value between these two, we could go do that. Right, so maybe we go, so we read all of that here, we keep our stock reader around, so maybe we'll have our data is a list, and then we'll say, okay, I want to read that into data. That way I can save it outside of this block here. So once I'm done, I want to close the file. You don't want to leave the file open if you're going to do something else with that information later, right? Because that holds on to resources. So I want to store all of that. I know this is not tons of information to store in memory here. I'm not working with millions of rows at all. We can keep 100 rows. This is a small two-dimensional list is fine to keep in memory. It's nothing too large here. So we'll go read all that. What is it not like? Without usage. Yeah. Okay. So it's just telling me, hey, you never used the thing up above. It's just warning us here. So we should now be able to go get some information out here. So we can ask the user, like, hey, what year do you want to look up or something? So we'll get a year to look up is an int of an input. Enter the year to look up data for. Right. Then we want to go find the number that they entered. Oh, actually, no, those are all strings, right? So we don't have to do as integers. That's nice. Those are all quoted as strings. And we didn't bother converting anything yet.
Are they all strings because it's comma, because the CSV file turns it all into text, or is it because they have the quotation mark?
It doesn't look like they're quoted, so I think everything is like when we read everything, it starts as a string. If you want to go convert, then we can go do those conversions, right? Because there's no format specifier in CSVs, it's just text, right? Excel will say, hey, this column is a certain type of column. We don't have that with CSV files. So yeah, so just like when we read a text file, like our little gradebook file, we knew this should be a number, but when we read it in, it reads as a string. We have to go do that conversion ourselves. Yep. All right, so we go look at that up. Now, lots of ways to go do this. There's the dumb way. We're just going to loop through every one and look for one that matches. It's not ideal, but it's what we have for now, right? And again, we're only working with 100 rows. It's not that much data here. So all we need to do then is say for, I don't know, row in data, if my row at index 0, right, the first index, we always start counting at 0 like normal people do, is equal to the year to look up, then we'll just print that row, right? We'll see if we can go grab all the data, read it in. We probably don't even need to print all of it here, right? Initially, we can just comment that out for now. Right, just go and read it, close the file, and then now we can go do something with it here. So let's go see if we can look up a particular, what year do we want to look up? 1930. Uh-oh. Oh, uh-oh, for row on data. Oh, I didn't finish saving. Okay, I didn't save it in right. The IO operation on a closed file. We closed it out here, didn't actually finish reading it. Shoot. Okay, so let's go back to our reader for row in data. Let's go append the row. I thought I could just save it here. It's not saving nicely for me here. That's fine. We'll add it as a separate one. 1930. Now we can look it up. Okay. There's probably a way to grab all of it at once. I don't remember what the specific syntax is at the moment here. We'll just go and add it ourselves. Okay. I'm going to go and store it. This wanted the file to be open for you to actually read it, because you can do more interesting things. You can have super large CSV files where you might only want to read one line at a time and not keep it all in memory. So we've got options when we're dealing with our files. But we can go look it up. Right? So we could say, hey, let's pretend you dumped a bunch of money into the stock market, and let's see how much it's worth later. Right? Should we do that? Would that be fun? So then we'll say, money invested. That's probably an integer of an input. Now, you might have particular pennies, but I don't really care about the pennies at this point here. How much money did you invest that year? Year to start. How about? And how much money do you invest that year, right? We'll go find that information. We'll see, okay, so it was 1534, whatever happened to be here. Then we need to go find the last row, right? Whatever the last row was is the most current data we have. It's 2024. We can do some fun stuff with lists. Did I show you the negative lookups? Did you do that one yet? So Python's really handy. So to get the last row of something, right, we can go index 0, index 1, index 2. We can take the length of it minus 1 if you wanted. But that's so common, Python gives us a shortcut for it here. So this is our current year. Our row is going to be my data, index of -1. And so that -1 is just a shortcut for length -1. Whatever. Right? So saying, hey, I want -1 is just the length -1. Right? -2, length -2. So you can count backwards instead of having to do it this way here. It just gives us a little shortcut here for that. So we got the current row. Right? Then we need to find the difference between the two. Right? So if you bought $100 worth of this, or really, so if you bought $15.34 worth of stock in the S&P 500, at this point, we'd expect it to now be worth $5,881, right? Because it's grown that much. So we're going to take, that's the second value here of that, right? So this is the row, so this is going to be our initial value. Let's see, it's going to be the money invested to start. And then once we find that row, right, we're going to take our money invested divided by the row index of 1 as a float. Right, so if you put $1,000 in, we want to divide it by the 1534 to say this many X of it, right, this many units of it. Yeah.
What is that operator?
It's divided by equals. It's our combined assignment operator. We just divide by and assign. Right, so it's the same as saying money invested equals money invested divided by, right? So we've got that. Then we have the current year's row. So now we want to multiply by what was that gain, right? Or if we've done 1534, I'm bad at arithmetic. It's been a while since I've done a lot of the math stuff. Let's see. So put that much in. I don't even know if we need to divide it. If we just keep it. Our initial value, we've got that. Maybe we just take this divided by the other one? Yeah, okay, so I don't even need to bother doing that. Yeah, we don't need to do the shares, right? So we got our initial money, so we just need we got money invested. We'll just keep initial value, starts at 0. We'll set this one to the float of the row at 1. And then our current value, current year row, current value is going to be float of current year row index of 1. And then we're going to take our initial value, multiply it by, what was it, the current value divided by the initial value. And probably for some order of operations here, whatever that crazy percentage growth is here, 1,000% or something ridiculous here, probably gets us pretty close here. So say, and we can print. Now, how many years was it, right? Well, we need to know 2024, I guess, right? Or I guess we can call it 2025 minus the year to look up, right? So 2025 minus an integer of the year to look up. Years, this was, we want new value, right? Current new value. You should have your money invested. What does it not like about that? Oh, no, sorry, current value. Your initial investment, initial value? No, money invested. Not initial value, money invested here. We didn't save it here, shoot. I want like the current value. Current value. Money invested times that. So our initial money invested is now worth, add a $sign, here's the current money invested. Probably another space here, right? I think that's gonna work. We'll give it a try, right? So hey, so from 1930, if we dropped, what do we say, 1581 or something? What was it? What was the number? 1534. 1534. Oh, but I said it was supposed to be an integer. It's probably close. 15. After 95 years, it's pretty close, right? Because we lost a couple of the pennies in there. I guess we should go back and do it with floats then, right? It's easy enough. We'll just change it to a float. Nobody else cares. Floats, floats, floats. Try one more time. So it's 1930, 1534, 588163. Our math checks out. Look at that. Did what we expected it to do. It's kind of amazing. Mostly on the first. That was almost the first try, right? Second try, technically. Yeah.
So what did you do with the if statement?
What did they do with what?
The if statement in the for.
I'm not understanding. I'm sorry.
Like the initial value equals
the initial value flow. Yes, we said, hey, give me this, right? Because this is the first index here. This is the initial value of the S&P at that year that you specified. So say, hey, go tell your great-grandpa, go back into 1930 and put some money in the market. And your grandpa's gonna be like, great-grandpa's, no, it's the middle of the Depression, that's stupid. But if someone had done that in the middle of the Depression, put some money in the market and left it for 95 years, it'd be worth a tad bit more now, right? Some large amount of growth. Now, we can do something more current, right? If we say, hey, maybe like 2000 here, and we invested like $1,000 in the year 2000, now we're worth like 4,000 25 years later. It's not terrible growth here, right? Is that 400% or something over 25 years? I forget how that works out every year. There's like the way to see what it was compounding, and I forget. Somewhere around 10%, or I think 10.5% has been the historic gains. Some years it's up, some years it's down, some years it's up a ton, some years it's down a bunch. So it's not perfect math, but it should even out. So cool. So we can grab some data out of CSV files. Now, this data wasn't too bad. It was all pretty cleanly comma separated here. But the other thing CSVs do for you is if you've got ugly data. So let me go back to Excel real quick here and show you one more. So in here we might have like name, we might have title, and then what do we want? Like I don't know, years experience or something. So if your name or your title has a comma in it, and we want to save this as a CSV, it starts to get really ugly, right? So here's Eric Chinesky. It's a little bit bigger. Say Leo lecturer 2, years experience, is that 13 years now, I think, teaching? 2012, 2025 minus 2012? That sounds about right. Okay, so this is fine. There's no commas in here. But say maybe there was a comma, like Leo, comma lecturer, because we like to be fancy and things like that. And of course, the administration won't let me use the title professor. I like to harp on that because it amuses me. Nobody actually cares if we pretend to use it, but I'm not allowed to officially use it until I've been teaching here for 12 years and ask them very nicely on my third review, can I please be called professor? And then after that, it goes through the review process and the dean has to say, sure, you can be called professor. It's a whole story. I like to complain about it. My apologies here. But lecturers are treated a little different than our tenure track faculty, which is all well and good. Like, I get paid to teach. They get paid to bring in research dollars. And by the way, they have to teach on the side. Really, they're here for research and bring in funding, those sorts of things here, which is cool because they know a lot of stuff and they're on the cutting edge of things. But we hire people who can research and bring in lots of grants for tenure track jobs. Anyway, and then we'll add other people here. Who else should we add? Who's someone else we can pick on? Dr. Baugh, Dr. J.P. Baugh, Leo, lecturer 2. He's been teaching longer than I have, probably like 20 years now. I forget how long he's been teaching. John's great. Tell him I said hi if you see him. He's a good guy. All right, that's probably enough for now. That's okay. So I'm going to go save this as a CSV file. Let's go browse. Again, I want to put it in my other documents folder in GitHub. 298, week 3. Here's, I don't know, staff or something. I didn't say the CSV format. Dang it. We'll get there. Browse, staff, save as CSV. Here we go. All right, we'll give that a close. So here's the Excel version here. Notice there's like a little question mark. PyCharm's like, I don't know what to do with this. It says, oh, how do you want to open it? Right? And if I say, hey, I want to open it as text, we get hot garbage. Right? This is a binary file. It's in a specific format that an application knows how to open and read and write. It's not text-based. We can't open this with text and go and edit it directly. Now, there's ways we can go open Excel files and play with Excel files. There's other libraries for that. But again, that's more complicated than we want to get into right now. So I'm actually just going to go delete that one because I don't want it here. But the CSV file, now notice it's quoted here. So if we tried to do this off the top of our head and do like a simple parser, it'd be like, okay, take the string, that's the line, find the first comma, and split that part off. Find the next comma, split that part off. Find the next comma, split that part off. That breaks really quickly when you have commas in your data. So fields can be quoted, so then you have to look for comma separated and then quotes on either side, and then that feels like a whole lot more work to have to manage, right? But the CSV reader does that for us. So if we go and open that one up here, we'll just go, I don't know, with open, was that staff.csv as staff CSV, and then we want our I don't know, staff reader. Reader is csv.reader, given the staff CSV. And then for row in staff reader, print the row, right? So we should get that nice and clean here. And we see now, it even takes out the quotes for us, right? It's like, oh, that was quoted to indicate that, hey, this should have been a comma inside of your field here, not outside. So again, just, yeah.
What's going on with the name field there?
The name. So there's like a first starting character sometimes. So if we go look at it in here, we don't see it. But I think if we open it in, I think if you open it like in the hex editor, you can see there's a weird character there. I don't know, if we Google it, it's a weird character start. CSV files in Python. I don't know. We might get a hit here. Strange character while reading a CSV file. Save your Excel file CSV versus UTF. UTF. Our UTF-8 versus 16 probably. This has been a nightmare ever since it got changed. So sounds like that could take care of it here. Yeah, when we go and open it here. This one here, yeah. I just said weird character and it picked it up. I love the internet. And this was not the AI bot, this was Stack Overflow, which is trained those smart AI bots on how to read and write code. And now that people aren't going to post on Stack Overflow anymore because they're going to get their answers from the AI bots, we're not going to have new data to train off of. So we're screwed because the bots aren't going to be able to train bots very well. I don't know. Some people are researching that. That sounds like a really hard problem that I don't care to solve. Sounds like a big headache. But yeah, so if we save it as CSV MS-DOS versus UTF-8, sure. Oh, we can give it an encoding here. Encoding is UTF-8. Let's try that. This might be fun. Let's go back to our other files. So remember, you can give optional parameters to your function calls. You can name your parameters. This is why it's really nice. So like this open thing, I think we looked at it briefly here. It says, here's all the different things you can give it. Ugh, right? You don't have to do that positionally, right? So named arguments is super helpful when we're dealing with functions that have lots of possibilities here. So let's see if that works for us. Hey, it took care of it. And you know, this is academia. We're going to cite our source here. So let's add a little note here. There we go. Look, I did it. I found something online. I used it. It wasn't mine. I had no idea this existed, but it fixed the problem for me. I'll drop a little note in here. Is that fair? Okay. That's all I expect from you, right? Dropping the note where you found this thing here. Yeah.
Should we be able to add a comment and say to get rid of that?
Yeah. It's rid of weird. What was that little character mark here? Starting character. Yay, UTF. All right. You okay so far? Yeah.
What exactly in the code makes it able to understand what row, for when you did the stock stuff?
Yeah.
What exactly made it understand what information, what row, how was it able to understand which row you want?
So we just did a really basic lookup that said, hey, I want to find the year to look up if it matches the first piece of information in that row.
So does it even look at specifics? It just looks at the first thing?
Yeah, we only looked at, because we know the first column was the year column, I just grabbed that one because I know what's in the file. Right? We could go say, hey, if this thing could get mixed around, we could look at the header column and say, okay, what's the index of the header column named year, and go find that, right? Because I'm not going to count what is the AA bond rate. Like that's a couple in here. I don't really care to count that. I'd be lazy. But like year was just the first one, so I know that was 0. Right? The value here was 1. That was pretty quick and easy.
Well, you could look at either the column.
Yeah, we could look up in the headers and say what index is it, and then use that index to look up in individual rows if you wanted to find one. Yeah.
So does that check go through all of those rows for index 0?
Yeah. So ours was, this is a terrible lookup here. This is a terrible way. Terrible. Right, it's, n speed. Because for every row I have, I'm going to look at literally every row to find one here. So it's going to be really slow, like performance-wise, especially the bigger the files get. But again, we know this is only like 100 rows. N of 100, nobody cares, right? They can be as slow as we want, essentially. Not a big deal here. All right, so that is the CSV format. Then we want to look at the Json format. So Json is a very common way of storing information, which is fun. It's Python JSON format. Why? I don't want being AI code. And this is sad because it costs them money. Every time they ask AI bots, there's not an insignificant amount of money being spent to auto-generate queries, right, from your AIs here, which is, I don't know how they make their money, but we're going to throw $500 billion at AI and over the next couple of years, right? And I'm sure that'll go very well. Sure.
On Google, it's much faster.
Yeah, there's ways you can tune them here. So Microsoft's version tries to go pull other information and then give you other fun things. They're like, oh, hey, do you want a time complexity or space complexity analysis? It's trying to be clever here. You must be a programmer. I think you might care about these things here. based on your questions you're asking, which is fun here. Look at that. It's even given, like, this is not a bad answer here. AI generated code. Review and use carefully. Thank goodness for this warning. Please don't just copy paste code you don't know what it does. Right? That's the whole reason why non-developers can't actually write code, because they can't just copy paste and put it all together. They say, I love my wife, but she's not going to write and develop an app and publish it on the App Store anytime soon, even with all these AI bots. Right? It's just not going to happen. Right? All right. So import JSON. Look at that. How do I cite this? Copy more. Yeah, we like that one. Good feedback. Goodness. Okay, well, I don't know. We'll just, here's my Bing search, I guess. Why not? We'll drop it in here. Wow, that's an ugly URL here. Sure, I don't know. Bing AI answer. Close enough. All right, so we're going to import JSON. Oh, we usually want to do that at the top of our files here. Oh, I'll do all of that at the top, actually. We want to run this before we do all this other stuff here. All right. So we'll import JSON. What does it even stand for? JSON meaning? JavaScript object notation. Oh goodness, JavaScript bites again. But JSON, JavaScript object notation, very common for anything web-based here. Very easy, flexible format. Works out pretty well for us. So we got that one down. We'll go and grab some data. This is the dictionary. We haven't done dictionaries yet. That's a bummer here.
I mean, it looks pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's just key value pairs.
Yep. We like key value pairs. Alice in Wonderland. Alice is 30 now? She's got to be older than that, right? That movie came out a long time ago. I think that age is wrong, but that's fine. So the string here, you can call JSON and you dump some data. So it just converts your data here. This is the dictionary format. It's a pretty quick, easy way to get that. It gives you a nice, pretty looking string in this JSON format. Or if you want to write it to a file, you say, hey, we just want to dump to a file. So this is much more interesting, dumping to a file here. So JSON dump, slightly different than dumps. Right? There was dump and there was dumps. I don't know if you notice that small little difference here. This one is dumps. This one is dump. And just be a little careful with which one you're using here. Saying, what do you want to dump? Where do you want to dump it? And what's our indentation? You can customize the indentation here to make it look a little prettier as we go, which is fun. So let's just go give that a run real quick, and we should get our data.json. Should show up here in a second. Is there like a refresh? I feel like there's a way to make a refresh. No? The other one's picked up pretty quick. No, I'm sad. Right, we're opening the file for write. I'm just going to call it file. Where's my data? No? We flip back. Really? All right, let's go see if it's over here then. It's taking too long. Let's open this folder in Explorer. The 3 files. Okay, here's the JSON file. We found it. It did write it. That's good. So if we want to open this one in Notepad, right, or some text-based editor, you've got lots of different options here. Just something plain should be fine. Here's the JSON format, which actually looks exactly like a dictionary. Right? JSON uses Python dictionaries, essentially, for this here. So the format is really nice for us to do that. So let's go. Oh, there it is. Finally, it picked it up here. It just took a second. Let's go change this. We'll say Alice is probably, I don't know, let's Google it. When did this in Wonderland come out? And we're talking about the book, right? So 1951, I can't do math in my head. That's 50 plus 25 minus 1. 70, so Alice is 74 plus how old was she in the book? She's like a kid. So she's got to be like 80 something now, right? We'll say Alice is 80. All right, so I'm just going to change the file contents here, right? Different than what's in our version here. So I'm going to comment this out. We don't want to write it here. I don't want to overwrite the file again. Here, no, don't overwrite again. And I wrote it one time. So if we want to read the file here, that's the last piece here. We say, hey, I want to JSON load from a file, which is super nice. This reads the file. Oh, it's calling data again. That's fine. No worries. We'll have our data. So data starts off with 30 here, but then we go and read it. Oh, did we not print it? Oh, there it is. Yep. Printed it all on one line, our dictionary here. Name, key, colon value, Alice, age, 80, city, Wonderland. We're able to read out that data real quick. So this works really nice when we have large pieces of data we want to dump. I think we could even dump out our stock data here. So let's go see. We went and read stock data, read it all here. So let's go see if we can dump that for fun. So let's go make another file and go through the dump operation. So let's do this with, oh goodness. We'll call this stocks.json for writing. Let's dump our data, right? We just read as a bunch of stock data. Let's see what we get back out. Right, so we should have stocks.json in a second. I don't know why that's so slow to load here. We can go look at it over here. So we look at stocks.json. And let's open this one in Notepad. And we get, now this is a little bit uglier here, but what we have is a list of lists, right? So just visualizing this was a two-dimensional list here. So here's the outer list. The first value was another list here, right? The next value was another list here. Right? The next value was another list here. So that JSON format doesn't have to be in dictionaries. Right? It's most common we do things with dictionaries because it's key value pairs, but it's like, oh, hey, you want a two-dimensional list? Sure, I'll dump it to a file for you, right? We just get, here's the list of lists as we go. So we could go and read that then if we wanted, instead of the CSV, whichever one we want, and then we'll already have the two-dimensional list format back out when we go read it, right? So this was to write it here, and if we want to go read that data back out, we could go pick it up here. Let's go copy our read operation. Let's go load it. Let's call this, I don't know, how about stock data? And this is our stocks.json. We're going to read it. We're just going to call load. And then for fun, let's just print stock data. Right, and see what we get back out in that format here. Oh, our ugly symbol here, that's okay. But here's the list, right? The next row is this one here, right? So maybe we want to loop through, you know, for row in stock data. Print the row. See if we get a little nicer format here. And we get everything back out just like we read it in. Right? So just a different format for saving that data here, which is nice. So working with JSON objects can save us a lot of time. We don't have to do any special formatting. We don't have to do any, like you just dump it to the file and it's out there. You want to read it back from the file, you just read it from the file and you're up and running. Now, you run into some issues when we start using objects and classes and JSON stuff. So turns out they don't dump nice and easily if you want to dump a specific object. So if we go through and make an object, like, I don't know, here's my class for, I don't know, we'll just make a class for staff. We'll define our init. We haven't done classes yet, have we? That's all right. Don't worry too much about it here. But name is name. This will make more sense later. And then, I don't know, we'll just have name. So just a name attribute. That's the only thing we're going to have for this staff class here. So we'll make, I don't know, Eric is a staff, given my name is Eric. If I want to try and dump this object here, right, it doesn't work very well. If I just want to print the object, it's not going to work very well. We get nonsense, right? It doesn't know how to print it here. So if we try and dump it, it's not going to know how to dump it either. Right, so if I want to try and dump my JSON object, where's my dump here? So this will be staff.json. We want to dump, I don't know, should we make a list of staff? I don't know, staff list equals a list. We'll make Eric, and then we'll take my staff list, and we'll append Eric to it. And then we'll dump the staff list. Give that a run. Oh, and now it crashes. Uh-oh. Object of type staff is not JSON serializable. It fails on us here. It doesn't know how to take a custom object and serialize it into a JSON format. So there's things we have to do. We'll get to that when we get to classes. Remind me that to look at how we can make classes JSONable. I don't know. Serializable, that's probably the more technical term. JSON serializable as we go. So it does start to break down. Now we could just take all of those and put them in some sort of list or some sort of dictionary and do it that way. Well, that's a whole lot of extra work. So there's some other stuff which is nice we can use. There's other libraries. There's this one, Python, JSON format for objects. I think it's called Pickle. Dynamically. Is that one it? I thought it was, isn't it pickle? Let me just Google pickle. I don't know why it's called pickle. Look at that, what do we see here? Unpickling and pickling to transfer data. It's a whole thing. When you build a library and people start using it, you can name it whatever you want here. So go and do fun things here. But yeah, pickle's really nice as you go. It's again one of those specialty libraries we can look at some point later. We'll probably get into the last couple weeks of class here as we go. So if I've had a couple people turn in the tax calculator project, fantastic. Again, it shouldn't be hard, right? The idea is just exercise some of this Python stuff we've worked on. And by the way, now we get to learn a little bit about taxes because it turns out nobody actually knows how taxes work around here. I've given this sort of project for years and years and years and years, and I've had one time one person was like, oh yeah, I know how progressive tax brackets work, out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students. So it's just, I think it's fun that you learn something else while we're doing code here. And that's all. And I get to pick the topic. So that's my fun. All right, questions, thoughts, concerns? If not, I'll see you Tuesday. Thanks, folks. Sorry to be late again. This weather's terrible.